While Canada's new Prime Minister jets off to Davos to click glasses with his fellow globalists over at the World Economic Forum, back home, tens of thousands of Albertans are lining up in the freezing cold for a chance to vote their province out of the country. The length of the lines are astonishing. Thousands are showing up at high school gyms and community centers all across Alberta with one message: we're done. We're leaving, and Canada will never be the same. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, celebrating yet another day in Trump's golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. So how did the world's poster child for multiculturalism go from sorry to secession in a matter of just 18 months? The answer reveals something darker than anyone wants to admit, because what started as progressive virtue signaling has spiraled into a constitutional crisis that's threatening to bankrupt and break apart the entire nation. This is Okotoks, Alberta, a small town just south of Calgary. It's minus 10 Celsius, 11 degrees Fahrenheit. Hundreds of people are streaming into a community center to sign a single petition. A young couple in their 20s explains why they drove here with their kids.
It hasn't been going very well in Canada for the past however long, and we have young children, and we hope to give them a better future if we can make some changes in this province. And if that means separating, then so be it.
Now, that couple, along with thousands of other Albertans, are signing a referendum that asks a very simple question. Do you agree that the province of Alberta should cease to be a part of Canada to become an independent state? Now, they have until May 2nd to collect 177,000 signatures, and judging by the length of lines all across the province, they're going to hit that number easily. In Red Deer, Central Alberta, the wait to sign the petition is often over an hour long. Reports are that referendum locations all across the province are seeing comparable lines, drawing between 1,700, 4,000 people each. But what about Edmonton? The traditionally liberal capital city. Take a look at this aerial footage. At Rundle Park in northeast Edmonton, thousands of people showed up just this past weekend to sign the referendum petition. This is exactly what we predicted would happen based on the studies on past independence referendums around the world. Nothing, absolutely nothing, draws out the electorate more than independence referendums. More Brits came out to vote for UK independence from the EU than had ever come out to vote in any other British election beforehand. The 2014 Scottish independence referendum, that achieved a remarkable 85% turnout. Similarly, the 1995 Quebec sovereignty referendum, the closest akin to Albertan sovereignty, that referendum drew an astonishing 94% turnout, representing the highest participation rate in Quebec's electoral history. Montenegro's 2006 independence referendum drew an astonishing 87% turnout. Again, completely unprecedented. This is the pattern that we see over and over again. Nothing brings out voters like independence referendums. 2 million people who voted for Brexit had not voted in the last 4 UK national elections. Low propensity voters see independence referendums as their chance to tell the powers that be what they really think of them. And generally, it's not very good, to put it mildly. And that also explains why the polls are almost always so off when it comes to predicting the success of a referendum, because independence referendums bring out the very disaffected voters that have largely dropped out of politics and thus do not get polled. This is why Brexit was such a shock for globalists throughout the European continent. They thought that the referendum was going to be comfortably shot down because that's what all the polls said. But those lines that we're seeing all across Alberta, they're the real polls. And they suggest that this referendum may indeed split Canada apart. So why is this happening? Why are thousands of Canadians, young people, families with kids, people who've never protested anything in their lives, why are they lining up to sign their province out of the country? The answer is going to absolutely blow you away. For decades, our dietary guidelines told Americans the same tired old story. Low fat, low salt, eat less. Meanwhile, our food supply quietly filled up with seed oils, chemical additives, emulsifiers, and ultra-processed junk engineered to hijack your biology. Well, RFK Jr. released new dietary guidelines, and for the first time, the federal government is finally admitting the truth. Ultra-processed food is the real driver of chronic disease. These new guidelines mark a sharp turn toward food quality. They pull America back toward real traditional foods while warning against the processed products because the damage that matters most actually starts in your gut. Your gut microbiome becomes imbalanced, inflammation takes hold, blood sugar control weakens, hormones drift off course, and the gut barrier slowly breaks down. For the first time, dietary guidelines are no longer ignoring the gut. They're explicitly recognizing kimchi as foundational to restoring the microbiome, supporting metabolic control, and strengthening immune function. Kimchi isn't just a fad, it's a centuries-old fermented food loaded with unique probiotic strains that strengthen the gut lining, regulate inflammation, and help the body detox from modern exposures. And RFK isn't just talking about this, he's living it.
Mainly meat and then fermented vegetable, anything fermented. So a lot of kimchi and all kinds of fermented vegetables. And it's really, I would say it's dramatically changed my, everything.
He eats like someone who understands that your gut controls your entire system, from weight regulation to immunity to brain function. The problem is that most people don't eat kimchi every single day. That's why Brightcore created Kimchi One. Kimchi One delivers the powerful benefits of kimchi in a single, simple, daily capsule, helping restore what modern food destroys. It supports your gut barrier, helps flush toxins, calms inflammation, and even reduces risk of obesity. In a world built on fake food, give your gut real protection. Today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking on the link below for 25% off your entire order, or for the best deal available, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off plus free shipping. Call them now at 888-597-0233. I take this every day. I love it. I know you will too. Again, 888-597-0233. The answers to why Canada is on the verge of breaking apart isn't just about pipelines or transfer payments or feeling ignored by Ottawa. It's about what the Canadian government has been doing to the very concept of property ownership, and it's worse than you think. Take a look at this street sign. What does it say? What's the name of this street? Well, if you have no idea, you're not alone. You see, the city of Vancouver decided to rename Trutch Street, named after a former lieutenant governor of British Columbia, to a traditional Indigenous word that literally no one can type, let alone pronounce. But this went beyond the latest absurd embarrassment and the less never-ending penchant for progressive virtue signaling. Overnight, residents who lived on the street discovered that their banks couldn't process the new name. Their insurance forms rejected it. Government databases crashed. Mortgages, business payments, even mail deliveries started going haywire because back-end computer systems couldn't handle the bizarre string of letters and symbols. And to add insult to injury, the state spent over $30,000 in the process of renaming that street. It was one of the most expensive woke antics ever. But as it turns out, it was just the beginning. Just months later, in August of last year, a British Columbia Supreme Court judge issued a ruling that declared that 800 acres of land on Lulu Island in the Vancouver suburb of Richmond, land that includes an Amazon distribution center, industrial parks, farmland, massive fuel storage tanks for the airport, and about 150 homes, some worth millions, is not actually owned by the Crown or the city or the residents who hold title to it. Instead, the judge declared that the land belongs to the Cowichan indigenous tribe. And on top of that, the court ruled that property titles issued by the Canadian government for government-held lands are, quote, defective and invalid. So we've gone from land acknowledgements to now active enforcement of returning the land back to indigenous tribes. And the reaction was immediate. Banks froze lending in the area. Real estate buyers vanished. A $100 million construction project lost all of its financing because nobody knew who actually owned the dirt it was going to be built on. Hundreds of homeowners suddenly realized that their properties are now unsaleable. And this is happening all over Canada. Indigenous tribes are stepping forward and suing this woke Canadian government, claiming their rights over the land. One tribe alone, the Six Nations tribe, is suing the government for nearly 1 million acres of land. In New Brunswick, an indigenous land claim now stretches across roughly half the province's entire landmass. And the financial obligations tied to all of this are spiraling completely out of control. By March of 2023, Canada had booked $76 billion in contingent liabilities, money set aside just for the resolution of Indigenous claims. Billions! And the number just keeps growing. Between massive settlement funds, legal costs, and newly created financial obligations, Ottawa is now on track to make Indigenous reparations one of its top budget lines. In fact, in his first budget, Mark Carney allocated $9.3 billion to Indigenous affairs over 5 years. So what's happening here is that Albertans are watching their government apologize for Canada's founding, declare that the land is stolen, and now spend billions on legal settlements that enrich law firms, while property owners in Richmond watch their life savings evaporate, and they want nothing to do with this. That's why they're braving the cold to stand out in line for hours just to sign this petition that'll permanently separate Alberta from these insane left-wing lunatics running Ottawa. So Mark Carney can fly to Davos and give all the speeches he wants. But back home in Canada, Albertans, by the literal tens of thousands, are lining up in the cold to vote themselves out of a country that tells them that they're the problem. It's not just the Indigenous peoples who are taking back their land. Albertan patriots are ready to take an entire province as well.